That's an interesting topic. So, over the years, there was many things I wanted to do, starting at the age of 5, my dreams of becoming a ballerina. Right up to the end of, I was in university studying to be a school teacher. During my studies over the summertime, I was operating heavy equipment and I was involved in a workplace incident. It was a pretty significant injury to myself at that time. I'm very lucky that the incident occurred exactly how it did in the moment, because after the incident was investigated, I was told that if it had occurred 1 second later, I likely wouldn't be here today. So that really sparked my interest in health and safety. It made me realize that the company I was working for, that they didn't have the proper safety procedures in place, and I could have lost my life that day. And that's where I had decided to change career paths. I think one of the most important things is support from upper management. So the company really needs to be invested into the safety and have that set as their core values. There are some companies that hire a safety professional to oversee it, but they don't support them and they micromanage what they're able to do to ensure that the workers are safe. So upper management support is bigger than anything else. If the owners of the company and the upper management are supporting safety, then that usually trickles down throughout the organization. It needs to be a number one priority, not just a task. So a strong safety culture looks like everyone buying into it and everyone participating in the health and safety program. If your management is supporting it, they're out on the floor and they're actively observing their staff and providing feedback on that safety culture. A weak culture looks like upper management not out participating actively in safety and being present in the environment and observing individuals completing things that they shouldn't be doing and not providing any feedback and support. I see it all too often where I have some clients where I've conducted inspections in their facility for 15 years, and year after year I make the same recommendations. And year after year I go back and I see the operations manager or the shop foreman on the floor, and workers are not wearing their respirators correctly and they're working with carcinogens and other very toxic chemicals. So yeah. A lot of times it's from change in positions. So whether that's a change in a bunch of your frontline workers or your management team and the proper training and procedures aren't in place, and the procedures that were once being used are no longer being used. Let's say you're working for a company and you have a great safety leader and upper management is supporting them and everyone in the facility is following all of the policies and procedures, and say that person leaves the organization and another health and safety professional comes in and their focus isn't where it needs to be, or maybe they have a lack of training and education in the field, and that safety culture that was built may deteriorate. And there might even be times where upper management is not aware of this occurring until it's too late. The qualities would be first having a good foundation in health and safety. So ensuring that you're educated and you understand what you're working with. So that can be policies and procedures. It can be the chemicals that are inside of your facility and other hazards. Also, it's very important to ensure that you're building relationships with the people that you're working with so they trust you and that they know that they can come to you when they need advice and they feel like they're not going to be reprimanded. And just being there to show everyone that you're there to support them and that their safety is what matters at the end of the day. Well, here at JADA, everyone is involved in our health and safety program. Everyone has their own tasks and their own commitment. We are all health and safety professionals, so we all take health and safety very seriously. I've always been a consultant, so my experience with working, say, in an organization where I'm the health and safety professional and I'm trying to have the remainder of the staff buy in is very limited. So typically I'm going out to other clients' facilities and I'm providing them with the recommendations from what I see inside of their facility. And then it's their job to take those recommendations and turn them into meaningful actions. I'm always here to support them along the way if that's of interest. But if I just go back to earlier in my career, before I became an occupational hygienist and I worked directly in safety, one of my buy-ins would be behavioral-based safety. So as an example, if I'm walking through a facility and I see a worker that's not wearing hearing protection, I may approach them and ask them if they would like a candy. And when they respond and say yes, I put my hand in my pocket and they put their hand out and I drop in a candy with a set of hearing protection. And it kind of makes the conversation light. They smile. There's no nagging involved. They put the hearing protection in and move on. If the worker says no, that they don't want a candy, then I still reach into my pocket and say, well, maybe you'll take a set of hearing protection. Yeah. I'm not really sure if there's a particular strategy. I think that question would be better directed towards someone that works as a safety advisor for a facility, because everything we do is safety. It is the main reason why we are hired. So we are trying to fill in the gaps in organizations where their gaps are, whether that's in their safety program or they need a hazard evaluation. So we're there to fill in those gaps and provide them with the next steps on how to get their program up to where it needs to be. A lot of the pushback in safety is because companies care more about profit than safety. Safety does take time, but it's important because workers need to make it home safe at the end of each day. So, I understand that workers can't go in and complete safety tasks for their entire shift, but there are critical things that need to be addressed, like hazard assessments and evaluations and controls put into place before work can proceed. If these things are not occurring, that's where we run into major incidents and fatalities. I always try to use a positive approach, as I mentioned earlier, regarding behavioral-based safety. I often try not to pull out the conversation of compliance. The bottom line is there are legislative requirements in the province, and we are required to follow them. And that's why safety needs to be done. But at the end of the day, safety isn't about compliance. It's not about tools or the checklist we do. It's about people. It's about keeping people safe and making sure that they make it home to their families each day. We live to work. And Sorry, we work to live, we don't live to work. And that's very important. So I always try to touch on those human factors first. And usually when people understand that the reason why you're suggesting what you are is to keep them safe. It's about them. It's about their families. I've had to tell people before, I don't know you, but I care about your safety. I care about if you make it home to your family. That's why I'm here and doing what I need to do. The compliance piece and the checklist and all the other tools we use as safety professionals are just tools. They're there to assist us with our jobs. And one of the other things, just going back to how you meet resistance, you always have to keep in mind when you're working with people that everyone's in a different place at different times. We don't know the people who we're working with. We don't know if they're dealing with a severe loss or problems at home. So we always have to take that into consideration when we're dealing with people and not judge them based on their responses to safety, just to be there and support them and try to work with them where they're at in that moment. I think I kind of touched on that in a earlier topic where I try to make it about the people. So that would be my first approach. And then my last resort would be referencing legislation and referencing why it's important and that, they have an obligation to put the control measures in place to protect the employees.